Now, unfortunately, not everything is available online. And that means that once in a while, you will be forced to type a reference in manually because that's the only way you can get it in here. If you're going to do that, go to the References menu and select New Reference. It brings up a blank data entry screen, and at the top of it, there's a drop-down list of reference types. When you change the reference type, and I'm going to change for a moment to, let's say a patent, it changes all the fields, and it will also change how it's going to be formatted in the bibliography. Change back to reference type, journal article, and I see fields appropriate for a journal article again. And if you don't like that rating field showing up, another new feature in EndNote X7 is the ability to hide it with the drop-down options list here. I'm not going to fill in every field. We're going to go through the fields that you're going to use most or that have special properties. Starting with the author field. And this one you can enter names, either first name, middle name, last name, if I could only type them, or last name, comma, first name, middle name. If I start typing in the last name first, EndNote's going to find a match for it much faster because the name in red does not mean there's a problem with it. It means it's a new name for this library. But Tiberius T-Rex has no problem in the name. It just means it's new. But when EndNote's trying to match names that have been used before, and it will keep track of them, when I save this reference, EndNote will remember all the names, all the journal names, all the keywords I've used in it, and in the future, it'll try to fill them in for me. But it tries to match them last name, comma, first name. So if you want to match typing in the last name, then the first names, the easiest way to get it. Then you can just hit the Enter key to add another name or tab to the next field. My next author has two problems with the name that require it to be entered last name, comma, first name. The first of those problems is that the last name is more than one word. If there's no comma in the name, EndNote will use the last word on the line as the author's last name. So for Tiberius T. Rex, Rex is the last name. If you have more than one word in the last name, you have to put it before the first comma. The next problem this person has is they're a junior. Well, but EndNote has. They don't have it. EndNote has it. Because if you have a suffix to a name like junior, senior, it has to come after a second comma. And that means you must use the last name, comma, first name, middle name, comma, and then put the suffix after the second comma. Anything after the second comma is a suffix. You can put more commas here, and it wouldn't be a problem. It's only the first two commas that have special meaning to EndNote. If you want to use initials instead of full names, and I know that's common in the sciences, medicine, the social sciences, you can do that. Let's see, we have Janet Marie. I can use initials, but I must put a period or a space or both between the initials. If I try to enter a name as, that would be seen as a single name, a single word, not as two initials. There must be a period or a space between them. And MD here is Marie Dagmar instead of MD as the doctor. But how do you handle corporate names or institutional names? Let's say the University of California. Put a comma at the end of it so the whole thing is seen as a single last name. But what if I have University of California, comma, Berkeley? Berkeley is now seen as a first name. And that could be a problem because EndNote will automatically abbreviate full names to initials if the style calls for it. So if I'm using the APA style, for example, which calls for initials, John Robert DeYoung would be JR instead of John Robert. For the institutional name, the way to get Berkeley not to be a first name is to put 2 commas where the first comma would go. Now EndNote sees this as a last name and a suffix. And in the formatted bibliography, it will show up as University of California with 1 comma, Berkeley. Similar situation might happen if you've got a title that's used instead of a name. Here's an example I was asked about once in a class. What do you do with the name Sitting Bull? That was not a first and last name. That was actually a title used for the Great American Chief. Put a comma at the end of it so it's treated as though it was a single last name. It will be formatted correctly in the bibliography then. For the year, just put in the 4-digit year. Don't put the full date there. The title field, I'm going to purposefully use an example that's going to be capitalized incorrectly for the sciences. This is how it would be capitalized for the humanities, at least in the US. EndNote does have a change capitalization or change case feature. Highlight the text and then click on this drop-down list to change to the capitalization option you want. And now it's in sentence case. The journal field, well, it's showing up in red because that's a new journal name, and we'll be talking more about the journal field and how journals terms list work in the Cite While You Write class. The volume and the issue, just put in the numbers. The pages field is another one with special properties. Some journals might want this to show up as 125-128. EndNote will take care of it for me. I don't need to worry about all the page numbers being entered exactly the same way. EndNote will change the numbering system to what the journal requires. The start page, you're only going to need to worry about that if you're using the Harvard Blue Book style, which often requires both the page range and the start page in the same citation. The Epub and date fields, there's something special about these, and that is that they're not date fields like you would have in Access or Excel or another spreadsheet program. EndNote cannot reformat the date. Whatever you put here is what's going to show up in the bibliography, exactly as you type it. So use the format used in your area of study. Now, for the date, do not put in the year, because that information would be pulled from the year field. But for the Epub date, include the year because it might have been electronically published in a different year than it was print published.